Welcome, dear listeners, to the Speak and Flow podcast, where we dive into unique experiences and stories to help you and your team unleash the power of their voice, achieve maximum potential and flow. Today, I have a dear guest and friend. She is the CEO, founder of BirdyLauncher, change catalyst as well. She is an amazing mother, leader. I met her through Golden Gate Universities when we were both getting our MA in organizational psychology. Welcome, Hanna Bankier.
Thank you so much, Melinda. So happy to be back. Thank you for having me.
This is our second time. I had so much fun with you the first time, and now we're going to do this again, but with a new spin, a fresh take on BirdyLauncher, which is not what most people might call empty nester. Before we even get into that, you have so many, you have accreditations, you're a coach, you have a certification at ICF, International Coaches Federation, and you use that in your work as well as the Master's of Organizational Psychology degree.
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, tell me more about what you're doing with BirdyLauncher and why not empty nester?
Yes, thank you for that question. So the general term for when the kids leave the home and they fly off and stretch their wings and get into this big, big world is empty nester. And that term just doesn't sit well with me at all, because how is the nest empty when you're still in it?
Uh-huh.
So I want to reframe that. Also, most people really associate emptiness with a really sad part of life. There's a lot of sense of loss. And while that is true, when we think about it and reframe it to become birdie launchers with the aim of becoming a free bird, it just changes the outlook altogether. Like, words really make a difference and they help us shape our experience. So the BirdyLauncher concept is, as a mama, you are helping, guiding, and ushering your kid, launching them into the big world. And in that process, you get a chance to launch yourself, to refeather you. You are not the same person you were 20, 25 years ago, however long ago you became a mother. And you probably poured in a lot of energy and effort and love and money into being the best parent that you can be. And usually then, as mamas, we end up finding ourselves at the bottom of the laundry basket, and the needs that we have are not being catered to in the same way. So here's an opportunity now, when your kids are leaving the nest, to actually focus on you. So the BirdyLauncher is both launching your kid into the world, but also launching yourself into this big world.
Oh my gosh. And tell me, what was your reason, your catalyst for doing this?
Yeah, so I have worked with people through transitions many, many times, like major life transitions, right? And for myself, I'm an immigrant. So one of my life transitions was to come to the US. Another major life transition is to become a mother. Then I went through a divorce. Then I did a career change, left my television production career to go back to school and become a coach and work as an organization development practitioner. So all of these transitions, and then I was like, wow, I have another major life transition coming up. My oldest is going to leave for college. So as I'm going through that, I became the go-to friend, where this was a topic of conversation for many, many of my friendships and relationships. And we're grieving and we're worried and we're excited and we're having all the feels and all of the emotions. And as I was digging into it, I decided that, as with most things, when we anticipate, when we plan, when we prepare, we go through any transition and with a much better outcome on the other end. So I became the go-to BirdyLauncher mama friend and then realized that, wow, there's 22 million empty nesters in the US. There's a huge need for this. So that's when I just became organic. Like, I want to share my insights, my practical tips, my wisdom, what I've gone through on a personal level and from the research and the writings out there. And coming together in community is so important. So I wanted to offer that and create that platform, that space for other moms as well.
Love that. And you are the best person to do that. And like you said, I love what you said, because I think most people would just go into it, not really thinking about it and just winging it. And so you would prepare people, plan for it, and it could be actually more of a birdie launcher experience, which makes me like get chills, like thinking about birdie launcher versus empty nester. You're right. Empty nester feels so empty, broken. I mean, Birdie Launcher is freeing. I love that. So what are the
Yeah.
phases of Birdie Launcher?
Yes, I see it. I created this framework. I call it SOAR because, of course, I love the bird terms. The kids are flying off and leaving the nest, and we're keeping those parts that are yummy and resonate versus the empty nest. At least when I picture it, I see this, empty feathers, pooped out, dried, leftover being, as opposed to this yummy, juicy place where we get to be free birds and launch ourselves. So the framework that I want to work with my clients is really like sitting with the grief. There is a sense of loss, there's all these lasts. This is the last time you pick them up from maybe a soccer game, the last time you're doing this, the last time. So there's definitely a sense of loss, and especially when it comes to your identity of being a mother. You're going from being a very hands-on mother, being kind of in control and knowing what's going on more or less at all times, to what is that, right? So the grief, and our culture doesn't do grief very well. We're very quick to just rush on and keep on moving and doing something else. And I find it hard to open up a new chapter and write a new chapter when we haven't closed the last one. So really making space for the grief. And then we go into the relief. What are all the things that you won't miss? The slamming doors, the picking up socks on the floor, making more lunch boxes, driving, 2 hours to some game at 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning, maybe some attitude that you're not really loving, or being up late at night because they're not home yet and you can't really fall asleep until you hear them coming home, or like all of those things. And sometimes guilt comes up here. Like, am I even allowed to feel relief over these things that I'm actually not really enjoying? I might love being a mom and love motherhood, but there's always pieces, right, that we're not loving. So we're reveling a little bit in the relief part. And then the last, and the one that will build the chapters for many, many years to come, is really the joy. We get to now recreate and write the next chapters for our lives. And for many, many of us, we might have been in the hands-on, active parenting for a couple of decades, depending on how many kids you have and the age span between them. And most people come into this phase of life around 50. Like 51 is the average year for mamas when their kids are leaving their home. And most of us are going to live to 80, 90 years old. So if we look at it, if you have 2 decades worth of hands-on parenting, and then you had another 3, 4 decades afterwards, that's a lot of life to live. So how do you want to live that life well, with, feeling connected, feeling purposeful, when you have removed the active hands-on parenting? And that's a big part of like, what is my identity now? How do I do that? What is my life? Who am I? So finding that joy and the spark and the life force and the juiciness, and like waking up in the morning and feeling good about life.
Oh my goodness. I love that. I love those 3 parts, and they're right on. I mean, it's like, I feel like not a lot of people will think through and have those phases and give respect to each of those phases. They're probably thinking, I'm going to go from like grief to just joy. Like, okay, let's just get rid of the grief and then go to joy. Like, when is grief going to be over, and then go to joy? And that's not true. I mean, like you said, we don't do grief well. And then like, I love the acceptance part too, or the relief part of it. Like, there's a lot of, like you said, the processing of the guiltiness of like the things that we don't want or liked. Like, there was a lot of them. And so
Right.
we do with all that, right? If you skip through it, you're not going to process it or close a chapter on it well.
Exactly. And we know that grief and relief and joy, like they can be all mixed and happening at all times of life, right? It's not a straight line. You can walk in and sit on this on your child's bed in their room and both revel over like, wow, this room has not been this clean ever before, and also sit and like, I miss them so much, and like holding on. And so it's not like you're done with one chapter and then you just move on to the next, but it's part of your experience. And I think this culture, one of the mistakes that many, many moms are doing, and parents in general, is really, oh, it's just part of life. It's just how it's supposed to be. And we're trying to skip over the emotional aspect of it all. And that's when we're not doing it well. And then the suffering and the sense of loss and the grieving, and it's so easy to then get stuck in it, and then you can't like unleash the rest of your life and those other chapters, because we get stuck and like shrink, and then it really does become that empty nest of that is, little leftover feathers with somebody. And there's so much focus on launching the kids, and of course that's hugely important, right? We get to celebrate that you've had this child for 18, 19 years and you freaking did it. Congratulations and high five. But there is no cake for you.
Yeah.
It's a graduation cake for the kid. There is a graduation. There's so much focus on them, but you did it. So let's revel in that. Let's explore and celebrate that. And let's not skip over the tender parts, because we have those as well.
Oh, so beautiful. And what do you see? I could see a lot of people not knowing how to go through this in a very productive, meaningful way, thoughtful way. And so what do you see are the biggest mistakes that parents run into?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake is just thinking it's part of the process and it doesn't require your time and attention and intention. That is sort of just going to work itself out. Another big, big mistake is not trying to start evolving your parenting. Your emerging adult is not going to want to be in a relationship with you in a close way if you talk to them or behave with them or control them the way you did when they were 10. So we really need to start emerging, like evolving, building this next chapter of our relationship. You will always be the mom. So it's not going to be a peer to peer, but as they're emerging adults and as they're leaving the house and as they're building their own lives, you're going to be closer to a peer relationship, which means you have to figure out, how do I parent now? This idea that you are no longer going to be used or needed and you're like used up and they won't need you or want to be in a relationship with you is absolutely a myth and not true. And it requires a shift. So how do I start shifting my relationship with my child? And I think another mistake that people are making is waiting until they've left.
Mm.
But starting when your kid is still under your same roof in your nest, and having these conversations of saying, okay, we get to co-create a new version of our relationship. What do we want it to look like and feel like? And what do you need from me? I will always be your mom, but we're going from hands on. I won't make your dentist appointments anymore. I won't do these things. So how do we transfer the adulting? And then what kind of job description do I have? What do I get to be in your life? And with my oldest, we had a lot of fun with this. We started already the summer between his junior and senior year in high school, and just started like, okay, what will this look like? What do we want it to feel like? And started handing over some of the responsibilities. And we were talking through like, okay, am I going to be your mentor? Am I going to be a coach and sounding board and advisor? What does my new job description look like? And we get to co-create it. It's not just me, right? You're an emerging adult. You're 18 years old. Like, what do we want it to be? So that is another mistake of just thinking that you're going to stay and being the same version of your parent that you have been before. And then another big, big one is really thinking you're going to go through it alone. We are social beings. We are herd animals. We need community. We need support. And many people are going through this transition as well. And being in community and getting the support, following a framework, not feeling lost and uncertain and overwhelmed. Or like, am I doing it right? What am I supposed to do? And have I prepped them? Is just like, don't go at it alone.
Love it. That's so true. I mean, yeah, because you're right. I think when you have a framework, you have a set day, a set time. Otherwise, we can fall into the trap of, oh, let's just be done with it. Let's just ignore it or it'll work itself out. No. And again, you're I think we're going to be missing out on what is possible for us. So what is possible for us, first of all, but what is possible? Like you talked about the joy part, right? When we
Yes.
do this part right, we can have so much joy. So tell us what else is possible when they do things right.
Yeah, I think for me, it's really about, in a sense, finding your own voice, right?
Uh-huh.
How am I want to be? Who do I want to be in this world as this version of myself where I am no longer pouring in a vast majority of my time, my energy, my effort, my love into hands-on parenting? Right? When you're no longer driving or fixing lunches or doing all these other things or checking grades or whatever it is, your version of parenting, then the world is your oyster, much like it is your kids. And I think it's really important for us moms to model that behavior. We keep on telling the kids, like, there's a big world out there. Yeah, but it's out there for you too. So if you swivel and shrink, then that's not who you want to show your kids that you want to be, right? So what is possible? What is possible is to really find, a lot of moms are going through a career transition. So where do I want to serve? Who do I want to be in this new phase? How can I find my ease and my grace in finding this new role of my parenting and who I am in this world? So picking up new hobbies, really connecting with friends. I think that one is crucial. Again, we need community. And when we skip the friendship part, we're missing out a lot. There's another big changing relationship, right? You have the changing relationship with your kid that's leaving. You might have siblings at home. That relationship will also change. Now there's a lot more spotlight on them and they may like it or not like it. Right. And then if you're partnered, there's another shift. We know that the graying divorce is going up. There's a 40% greater likelihood of getting divorced when your kids have left the nest. So how are you tending or not tending to that relationship? Are you, living together but alone? Are you roommates or are you still in a connected, romantic, deep, loving relationship? So making that determination and choice and is this a place I want to invest in? Who are we together when we're not just focusing on being co-admins for the organization called family where the kids are usually the focus? So there's all these opportunities. And again, you're creating and writing the chapters for yourself for the next 2, 3, 4 decades.
Mm-hmm. And so how would you support someone through all of this?
Yeah, so I work with mamas in a few different forms. I do workshops to really do a deeper dive in some of the things that we talked about today, just to get a sense of how do I want to go into this as prepared and as aware as possible. Again, when we anticipate something and we plan and prepare for it, we come out stronger. And I really want women to go through this with grace and ease and not just have all the worries. Like, yes, we're excited about our kids. They're ready to launch. Like, again, score, we did it. And we're worried. Like, oh my God, have I prepared them enough? Do they know how to balance a checkbook? Can they do the laundry? Do they know how to cook? Like, are they adulting enough? So getting that mix of insight and wisdom and practical advice. So it comes in workshops. I work with moms one-on-one, just coaching them depending on what they are and what they need. And then I also have what I call the launching squad, which is a group, again, community coming together where we meet and just go through that same framework as I work with women when I work with them one-on-one. And we look at all these different aspects, and then we get to have, again, that sense of community and going through it. That is a shared experience. I don't have to be alone in this.
Mm-hmm.
So choosing to get the support is a crucial step.
Yeah, I'd imagine. So it would be interesting to see, like, yeah, depending on where a mom is in their journey, what area of support to get from you. And do you also support the fathers too in in some way?
They sometimes show up for my workshops, but I'm really focusing on the mamas, and that's my lived experience. Moms are really most often going through this change and transition and the sense of loss on a much deeper level. Many moms are the primary caretakers, and many moms have a much closer emotional bond with their children. So this sense of loss of that hands-on mothering identity is so much deeper for moms. So I'm focusing on the mamas at this point.
Definitely gonna reach out to you because we know our daughter. She's about that time. So this is so fascinating. But I love how you're how there's joy in finding our voice after at the end of all this. But then we do have to get the first part of it right. Like you wouldn't be able to experience as much joy because you're still trapped and thinking about all the other stuff from the beginning. So
Yeah. And I think we all can, if I say, like, just paint this picture of there's mom who is now bitter and resentful because she's not feeling needed by her kids. I think we all have somebody in mind that pops up. And that's not where we want to be. We don't want to become a burden onto our children. We don't want them to feel guilty that they're off living their lives. They're supposed to. This is why we raise them. We have succeeded raising independent adults, and that's amazing. But that means also we have to show up for ourselves and be that same independence and have a zest for life, like that juicy part. So yeah, so that those are the points of really coming together. And to your point, when we do it well, and I even start working with some moms whose kids are juniors in high school, because they really anticipate, like, okay, I want to take this last year when they're living at home and really have that flow. And what are we doing? Because it's not flipping a switch. Transitioning anything, and especially a relationship, takes time and effort. And we're going to flub it once in a while, and then we get back on the horse and we do it right. And then sometimes it's like the moms who are just like, oh, I just focused so much on the kid and I moved them into college or however they left. And now I'm sitting here and I'm empty and lost and I am confused and overwhelmed and I don't know who I am. So the range of moms that come to me are really from junior year in high school to post leaving the nest, and I welcome them all.
totally. I see that. I love that. How would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so the best way is to go to my website, BirdyLauncher.com, and Birdy with a Y. And then you find all the workshops and the launching squad and how to work with me one-on-one. And I also want to offer to this audience for today is I have a freebie, a little handout. So we'll get a link at the bottom and then they can get that to really, and that freebie is about really start focusing on this transitioning of your parenting and like how are you going to shift your parenting from hands-on mama to mama mentor or whatever that job description is that you and your child decide for you.
Yeah. Ooh, I have to think of that job title. Thank you so much for that. Grab the little freebie that's going to be in the show notes or go to BirdyLauncher.com, check out Hanna's webpage. And so thank you so much, Hanna. I actually learned so much. It's exciting. I really enjoyed the framework and what is beyond all of this, after the kids leave and looking at it differently and having more joy around it. And yeah, thank you. So thanks so much. And I really appreciate you and audience. I'm trust that you got your golden takeaway for today, and don't hesitate to reach out to Hanna. And until next time, I am your sister in flow. Remember, anytime that you have an opportunity to speak to someone, it is your chance to connect, to inspire, to make a big impact. Thank you. See you
Thank
next
you.
time. Bye. Thanks for joining the conversation today. Are you curious on how you measure up with your ability to speak in flow? Come grab my free self-assessment at https://speakinflow.com/assessment. And I'll see you on the other side.